When we're laying on our deathbed, you're not going to worry about how much money you had, how much power you had, how much prestige. You're going to see that that was all game, that that was all an illusion. The only thing that's going to matter is the impact you had on other people's lives.
We are all on a separate journey. But the beautiful thing about our life here on this earth is at my funeral, they ain't going to talk about my success. They're going to talk about who Nick was and how Nick lived and how Nick loved and encouraged.
Success is incredibly important, but even more important than success, it's having an impact. It's knowing you haven't walked the planet in vain. It's knowing that because you've been here, you've blessed lives, you've developed people, and you have made the world a better place.
The effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is. Everything you gain in life will rot and fall apart, and all that will be left of you is what was in your heart.
Life is a mirror, and life gives us not what we want. Life gives us who we are. When you were born, you cried while the world rejoiced. Live your life in such a way that when you die, the world cries while you rejoice.
Have you ever stopped to wonder about the soul behind the spotlight? The truth behind the headlines? Beneath every glamorous facade lies a story waiting to be told. A journey full of triumphs, struggles, heartaches, and victories. Welcome to People, the groundbreaking new series here on the Alpha Warrior Show. Tonight, we're setting politics aside. No hidden agendas, no filters, just pure, raw humanity. In a world that constantly tries to categorize us, it's easy to forget what binds us together. Our shared experiences, our laughter, our tears, and the authentic moments that define who we truly are. Each week, we're going to explore the powerful, emotional, and beautifully imperfect lives of people who inspire us, captivate us, and remind us that we're all in this incredibly messy and extraordinary journey together. We'll laugh, we'll reflect, and we'll dive deep into the stories that often go untold, unapologetically, real, and deeply personal. Get ready to meet the heart behind the headlines, the reality behind the reputation, the persona behind the person, the grit that makes these amazing people tick. This is People, real stories, real connections, real life. And when we come back from this commercial, it's showtime, and I hope you enjoy. Are you looking for a better alternative to the over-the-counter drugstore medications? Tamart Garden began from a parent's desperate need for safe and effective options for their kids. Tired of toxic chemicals taking matters into their own hands, they began crafting medicine from weeds, wildflowers, and herbs, the original time-tested healers that modern medicine can't match. Packed with antiviral herbs to boost immunity and fight illness, Tamart Garden has, for a limited time, their elderberry and rosehip syrup kit available. Not only is it delicious, no more battles with the kids, and easy to make, it will keep you and your family healthy all fall and winter. Introducing Tamart Garden's new baby line. Clean, non-toxic, and gentle for newborns and moms, relieving cradle crap, diaper rash, stretch marks, and postpartum pain. Visit tamartgarden.com today and use promo code Badlands for $10 off for orders over $50. Remember to eat your weeds, tamartgarden.com, promo code Badlands. Again, tamartgarden.com, promo code Badlands. And one more for you guys. You know about Van Man taking down big toothpaste with all natural care, right? It's the perfect time to grab the dental care bundle to gift. Van Man's tooth powder is loaded with minerals like eggshells and bone and combined with pulling oils and peppermint aloe mouth rinse. It's truly the ultimate fluoride-free dental hygiene bundle that saves you 25% off the individual prices, and the van never stops. Introducing Van Man's new Pearl Eye Cream and Sweet Onion Shampoo. Head over to badlandsmedia.tv/vanman to see what's new. That's badlandsmedia.tv/van. All right, ladies and gentlemen, remember, support the people, support this show. All the links to our partners, sponsors, and affiliates down in the description below. So if you're watching on X or some of these other platforms, you got to jump on over to Rumble to get into that description box. Tonight's guest, folks, very special to me. You know, this is not just a guest, but this is a friend, a real life friend. And for all those that know my story, you know how hard life got for me. And this man is one of the very first people that, without question, brought me on his show, put me in front of his audience, and started to get me support to fight my battle. And one thing that I've experienced in this industry of podcasting and alt media is a lot of people say, I'm there to help you. I'm ready to help you. And as soon as the show's done, it's like message, email, and crickets and crickets and crickets. And then you start to realize my story was just content. And James wasn't one of those people. James was there routinely. This show that I'm doing right now, all this is because this man was willing to jump on Zoom calls with me, jump on different things and teach me how to do it, what kind of equipment I needed. He never said, I'm too busy. He never said, hey, man, I'll get back to you on that. He said, let's go. And he means a lot to me. And tonight you guys get to peek into the life of this man. Who am I talking about? Talking about James R. Pirate Radio. It is a show that you better not be thin-skinned if you show up. You are going to learn, probably going to get triggered, and everything in between. So without further ado, let me bring on the man you really want to learn about tonight, and that would be my brother, James R. Thank you for joining me here tonight. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. As always, I always appreciate being on your show more than you could know.
Well, I will say this, you know, and you've heard me say this in spaces and things like that. You know, this audience hasn't heard it yet, but to me, you're like our modern day Rush Limbaugh, like the undiscovered Rush Limbaugh. And I always say, like James R. could dance circles around Sean Hannity. He could dance circles around Tucker Carlson. There's trigger number one. I told you guys are going to get triggered today. I know you love Tucker, but at the end of the day, one of the things that I've always respected for you is your freaking accuracy. And at the end of the show tonight, we'll get more into that. But whether it was elections, whether it was a policy, whether it was something, you know, the sky is falling, you know, the people that want to subvert the support for Trump, you always just with a real calm and collected voice said, look, okay, stop being retarded. This is how it's going to play out. And guess what happened over the next few days or next few weeks? To a T. And so I remember, because you know me, I'm a detective, man. Like we don't just listen to what people say, we listen to how they say it. And you always had this confidence as you delivered this information. And sure enough, it would happen that way. And like I said, when I say that this man right here next to me is the undiscovered Rush Limbaugh, I ain't kidding. And like I said, if you guys go follow his content, you guys will see that. So this is where I want to start, James. You know, before we get into a lot of stuff that people want,
Trying to blow my head up.
just a little bit, just
trying to push me off my game. It's interesting that you bring that up because I would give the same credit Rush Limbaugh always did. Talent on loan from God. Exactly.
And that is the dang truth. So let's start here, man. Let's figure how we even got to James being James. What was life for like you growing up, man? Did you grow up stateside? You know, what was it like?
I grew up poor, just outside of Chicago. I wouldn't say I was dirt floor poor, but you know, there was plenty of nights where my mom didn't eat just to make sure us kids did eat. So it was poor, but that puts you in a place where you have to be very self-reliant, very young. I know a lot of people that are out there in the audience will get that. Like, you know, growing up poor is they've made songs and movies about it. Like you grow up fast, right? Because you don't have a choice. You just got to do what you got to do. I mean, especially like growing up in the time frame of this country where I did, the 70s and 80s were not a joke. It was a much worse condition economically than we're dealing with now. You had gas line, like you would be lucky to get gas for your car if you had a car. Okay, there was plenty of families that didn't have cars where you had to help them out, the other families on your block, to get to places, doctor's appointments, whatever they were, because they didn't have a car. And you might have lived in a place where, you're not like New York, where, in New York, they got plenty of public transportation options. A lot of places don't have that. So,
Y- No, I agree completely with you. As a matter of fact, and anybody that grew up poor may agree that with this statement. When you grow up poor, which I did and you did, and I'm talking poor, like I always say, like, my house growing up, part of the floor was concrete and part of the floor was concrete and dirt. And
yeah,
and there was my mom in the kitchen, because the kitchen was part concrete, part dirt, cleaning it. Because my mom's thought process was, just because you're poor doesn't mean you have to be dirty. That's that.
yeah,
And when you grow up that way, you don't have a fear of being poor because you know how to survive it. You already did. But you don't ever want your kids to experience that. And
that's right.
so your fear is not of being poor. Your fear is of your kids having to ever experience that. And it creates this motivation and fight in you. And I'll tell you what, folks, as we get into James's story, you're going to realize a turn that happened in his life just a few weeks ago, not years ago, a few weeks ago. And I'm telling you, you're going to be like, how the hell is this man on a podcast right now? And it's because of that fight that we were talking about right now. And much love for you. But yeah, you grew up poor. What part of the country?
Just outside of Chicago. So rough, right? Like, I had to fight everybody. Didn't matter what your ethnicity was. I had to fight everybody. That's just the way it was.
So Chicago's really like the way the movies make it out to be for us then.
Oh yeah, yeah. People that grow up where I grew up, especially Chicago, that whole region, they grow up knowing you didn't see anything. Like it's straight up. Everybody knows somebody that's a mobster. Everybody knows someone, right? That you didn't see nothing. Keep your mouth shut. Very very individual, private up in that region, right? Like so.
That's funny because in my prior life as being a cop, being a detective,
Yeah,
when you went into the gang neighborhoods have adopted that mindset. And
yeah.
so you show up to a party where those 20, 30 people and there's a shooting, right? You're just like, hey, who saw what happened? And it's literally like the movies. I didn't see nothing. Right?
Yep.
It's just
Yep.
like 30 people, right? Nobody
Nobody
saw
saw
nothing.
nothing.
So in the days following, I'd start picking these people off and I'd be like, and I didn't see nothing. I said, no, you didn't see anything that you can tell me officially, but listen, you owe me some favors. So off the record, you're going to tell me some stuff. And, sometimes it worked and sometimes it was like, I ain't going to tell you nothing, but I'll tell you where you're wasting your time. But and then you figure it
Yeah.
out on your own. So I totally get that. So how the heck did you end up in Hawaii, bro? Because I mean, you're talking Chicago, so I'm thinking the movies, I'm thinking like the crazy Obamas. How in the world do you grow up like that and then find yourself in Hawaii?
So I'll tell you the full real story. It's kind of interesting for people who actually care about other people's stories, but for most people, you're just going to be bored for the next few minutes. So I was young. I was a kid. As I just mentioned, the economy was shit in the 70s and 80s. So my dad lost his job at the company he was working for. And so we had to do something. He had a friend from his high school that had moved to Las Vegas, and out there was a new industry starting across really the whole country. We were involved in it in a small bit in the Chicago area, which was telecommunications. So it was basically satellite and like the very beginning of HBO. Some of your audience is probably too young to remember the beginning of HBO and MTV. I was there for it. Okay. Like, and I was literally in the industry putting up the antennas. A lot of people don't even realize, like, where did that stuff come from? A lot of that stuff came from UHF and microwave technology back then, where that's how you got HBO into your house. There was no such thing as a cable company at the time, right? A cable company started later. I was there at the beginning, like at the very beginning. So I was a little kid already working for my dad. Like, I started working when I was 11 years old, like very young. Okay. So art, like most people in this audience, probably had chores when you were kids. Yeah, my chores were, you're going to work. Let's go. You're going to learn some stuff today. And so by the time I was literally 14, I skipped ahead for a second. So let's go back. So we moved from Chicago to Vegas in the 80s and went directly into satellite technology. So we were putting in, like 20-foot TVRO dishes. And so we did both TVRO and TVSO, which means television receive only and television send only. So like we did the simulcast for the Aladdin Hotel, I believe it was, during the Mike Tyson fights, we would be the company that was on site uplinking all that stuff for the country, putting it on the satellite. So yeah, that's how I got started. So that's when I say, like, I was digging ditches when I was 11 years old. That's not a joke.
That's crazy. My dad, he started me young, not that young. I was already at least a teenager. But I remember when summer came around, he had that gap between when school ended and before football practice started. And so every now and then he would grab me and then eventually, my little brother, and take us out there to do the work that he did, digging the trenches. And I hated it, because, as poor as we grew up, our life was still, I consider it good, and I remember those summers, I get blisters in my hand. I'd be like, this sucks. But it created that seed. I'm never going to do this when I grow up. Like, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get a good job because there's no way I'm going to be doing this, when the sun is, before the sun comes up and then, to the late afternoons in one of the hottest parts of the country, South California.
Right.
And my dad, James, he knew what areas to take us to because when I got older and I want to do some side jobs with them, I saw there were some jobs that were, easy, they weren't too bad. He didn't ever take us to those though. He took us to the one where you're digging a trench and it's soft sand. So it's like you dig and then the sand just falls back in. He takes you're digging you go to dig in with a shovel, the trenching shovel, and you're like 3 inches in and you hit these roots because the tree was there that they never took it out right. So you're just like, God, it's your foot's vibrating, your hands hurt. Like, so yeah, I get that. So then you end up in Hawaii, beautiful Hawaii. And how many years were you out there?
Almost 20. Yeah. Like, so I think 18 is the number. Yeah. So family business goes from Vegas to Hawaii essentially. And, that's what takes me out there ultimately. And so, yeah, it's a great place. Like, because it's kind of like the attitude that I grew up in, like, but at the same time, nobody can afford it, which is why I'm not there anymore. It's even rich people would have a tough time living in Hawaii for any length of time because the economy is so messed up over there on what everything costs. Like, it's retarded. Like, $10 gallon of milk.
Jesus.
Yeah, no joke. It's actually got cheaper gas than some of you guys in California pay though. It's under $5, which is retarded. Right? But
that's just because you guys probably don't drive very far.
Yeah, you don't drive very far. That's for everybody. You can drive for hours in a circle, but that's about it.
Yeah, I always, people trip out, when, I was talking to, I was just in Florida last week and some people are like, oh yeah, you can be up into, I think it was like Nashville or something like that. They're like, yeah, you can make that trek in like 8-10 hours or something like that. And I'm thinking like, and they're talking about all the different states you can cross. I'm like, man, 8 to 10 hours, you're still in California. You're at the top, but you're still in California if you're traveling north. Well, then let's get into the little bit of the family stuff. And then I want to get into one of the heavy parts of your story. You meet your beautiful wife that you have now, and share a little bit of us of how that love story unfolded, because her family comes from some devastating tragedy.
Yeah, yeah. So my wife is Chinese. You just saw her probably walk behind me just a few minutes ago, because she wants to hear what's going on here on the show, and so But yeah, my wife is Chinese, and her family, some of it, escaped China, but a lot of her family was actually killed by the Chinese government. Okay, so she basically grew up in New York. Um, we met because of the podcasting business, because I was doing the podcasting, and she was as well. She had her own stuff that she was doing, and that's how we met. And then she came to me in Hawaii. Thank you, baby. I didn't have to go to New York, because man, if I would have had to go to New York, it would have been brutal. I don't think I would have survived, honestly. I mean, especially at my age now, I don't think I would have survived. No way.
So you meet the beautiful woman that we all know as Miss Giggles.
Yeah.
And one, I didn't know she was in podcasting. So that's something new that I learned today. So that's very cool.
Yeah.
And you guys are hanging out in Hawaii. We start getting into, the politics stuff. You said that you were in podcasting. Now, were you always in it, like from this position, like being behind the microphone, or was it a different position? Like how did that world actually start for you?
Yeah, so that world actually started because I was the guy that would be driving around wherever I was, yelling at the radio because the talk show hosts were idiots, right? You mentioned Sean Hannity, right? So that was me. I was the guy that was yelling at the radio and calling these people up on the radio, telling them that they were wrong. Like there was some of those people that you guys all know them, right? They're regular voices, especially when you heard me, James, out of Hawaii. Like I was calling in like to the Joe Pag show all the time, down there in Texas. He was nationally syndicated, so yeah, you know.
that is pretty cool. So I've yelled at the radio. I think everybody is watching has yelled at the radio, but I never had the courage to be like on call in and talk some shit. like I couldn't take it that far, because I was just like, now I'm just gonna be pissed off, and I'll speak to my audience of one, right here with me, or my kids out of here going on the way to school. So how do you come up with the name Pirate Radio?
It was actually my partner at the time's kind of our collaboration. He called it the Midnight Special because for those that have seen me so far on this show, you don't really know who I am when I'm in my radio personality. Okay, I cuss like a sailor. I cuss enough to where Alpha would be blushing, and he's a Marine. Okay, like so. Just want to put that out there for everybody. So when my I was on another show. I was on another network's show. He used to bring me on every Monday night with Dr. Oliver McGee. Dr. Oliver McGee used to be one of the science people for Trump's first term. So I used to do that show every Monday night. That was going pretty well. Lots of people were tuning in and stuff. So anyways, that was where I was at the time. And I met my friend Chris Mack through that show. And then we started doing some shows together, and we drew enough ire of one of the senators, Lamar Alexander, that "F.U. Lamar" became like our tagline, because he sent us an email because he didn't appreciate the fact that we were calling him out and calling him a rhino that didn't know what he was doing in government. So he sent us an email, and so my response to him was "F.U. Lamar" live on the air, and so that became, the Midnight Special, which then subsequently became Pirate Radio, because we were cussing like sailors and just ripping into these politicians who were tuning in and didn't like what we had to say about them. So yeah, that's where Pirate Radio came from. It was kind of a brainchild of two people. I put together some audio and an intro with pirates all over it, and then eventually I met a friend of mine, Bob's Lessons, on the internet, and Bob is a talented musician who created the new now intro that you've heard. he made a whole song for me. So it's a personalized intro of pirate radio, and yeah, it's very cool.
It
So
is,
yeah,
it is very cool. And just to let the audience know, full transparency, when I invited James to come on People, I said, "Listen, bro, you just gotta do me this is a little bit of a solid, and just tone it down just a little bit." I said, "I go look, me and CanCon, we cuss. We're Marines, run sit rep." But I did tell him, "Can you just a little bit, just a little bit?" And he's done a fantastic job. Just so everybody knows, to put it out there. All right, so then we get into I want to kind of start transitioning into what you have kind of survived. I guess that's the best word to use, is survive.
yeah,
A few weeks ago, because you're now stateside here in
yeah,
Cali, and you explained, the cost of living in Hawaii is kind of what facilitated that.
yeah,
But you come here, there's a lot, I would imagine, a lot going on in your life, because you just literally uprooted,
yeah,
what, 2 decades worth of living.
yeah,
You're a new father again, because you got a new tiny one that's in the story, and I can definitely empathize with that, because my little ones. And
yeah,
then you have to acclimate to that,
yeah,
and all that stress all kind of accumulated to one day.
yeah.
So why don't you tell us what day that was, and walk
Sure.
us into the story? And I'll tell you right now, audience, this is about to blow your mind.
Yeah. So August 19th, I had a massive stroke, and I damn near died. They did save my life, thank God. Um, Let me just say, I mean, it still tear jerks me, because it's not about me. It's about what I almost did to my family. And it's my fault, 100%. My lifestyle. I didn't get my shit together. I should have listened to my wife. She was trying to get me healthy, and I was just a stubborn pain in the ass. Smoked too much, ate poorly, and created a scenario where I had a massive stroke in a parking lot August 19th. I couldn't stand back up. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. Thank God some construction workers saw me flopping around in a parking lot like a fish and came and helped me. They called 911. They could recognize, I had facial paralysis. I mean, the signs were all there that I was having a stroke. So they called 911. They got me to some medical care immediately. And that, by the way, to the audience, thank you to Alpha, who was one of the first, not the first, but one of the first to actually reach out to my wife and offer support and love and kindness, and even took it upon himself to put content on my channels for me, to make sure that I didn't fade away to nothing, to where everybody forgot me. So thank you to Alpha for that. And that's the friendship that we were talking about in the very beginning, right? This is more than just doing things on the podcast. It's about real people. And I realize I'm emotional, so hopefully you guys can understand the emotion involved here. Is that, man, I almost left my family without any means of success from this point forward. So that's the part that tears me apart, is that I almost died August 19th. That's only a little over, almost 2 months ago. So it's not very long. I'm still in the recovery process. I still have doctor's appointments like every day of the week. So
It's I remember when I got the news, and I just, the worry that I felt instantly, because you know what happened to my mom. And I remember thinking, you know, one, you're the first thing you're thinking is, I just want my friend to live.
mhm.
Like you're 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 not even picky about what, I just want them to live. And then we got the news, that things were looking good, because of how fast everybody responded to it, and the decisions that the doctors in your family made. And we had, we've developed some friends with some good doctors, and based off of what Ms. Giggles was kind of telling us, they were able to kind of give us a fair assessment of what things were probably going to look like, and a very positive prognosis. And so that
Yeah.
definitely kind of made everybody kind of just be like, okay, now just begins the fight for recovery. But I feel like this hit me different because of my mom. Like, I've known of people to have strokes. Obviously, you know, I'm 46 years old. That term means something to you, but I
Right.
never experienced it hitting home.
Yeah.
And when that happened to my mom, that's the first time I experienced somebody close having a stroke. And I remember when I got the news that you were going to make what was going to be a full recovery, and so far it definitely looks that way.
Yeah.
I remember I was so happy for you, bro. But then I was hurt at the same time. And
Yeah.
I'll explain this to you in the audience. Is I remember thinking like, yes, like for selfish reasons and friendship reasons, because I rely on James a lot, folks, just so you know. So I was like, I need this guy in my corner. I'm not in a position to lose friends right now. Like I'm trying to gain friends here. Like Jesus, you're like, come on, you know. But then I remember thinking too, like, why couldn't my mom have that success?
Yeah.
You know, like I can have a conversation with you, and I'm trying to keep my emotions in right now. I am really trying to maintain my bearing.
Yeah.
You know, me and you can talk.
Yeah.
We can have a story. And for my mom, you know, she's recovered her full mobility. You know, she, woman's a fighter, and we can have a conversation, but only because I've acclimated to the way she speaks. You know,
Yeah.
I can understand about 40-50% of what she's saying, so then we can have a decent conversation. Like I know what words she uses that mean something else.
Yeah.
But I was like, I remember thinking like, you know, did I not pressure the doctors enough? Did I not move fast enough? You know, it's just I wish she could have, you know, had the miracle you had. And that said, you're still in a fight.
Yeah.
It's not like you're free and clear. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
once and this is why I actually wanted to have this conversation. I even told you I wanted to have this conversation at some point. I guess right now is a good time to do, because you're going
Yeah.
to answer some questions for me, or at least maybe you can.
Right.
When you were finally conscious, you
Yeah.
know, the surgeries were done, did you understand what was going on? Like what was your world like being in that bed, man?
No, when I first came to, didn't know what the hell was going on. No idea. It's pretty bizarre. But I'll tell you what, I would don't take any blame for yourself or for God, but God's the only reason I'm here where I'm at today. For real. There's nothing like coming to and realizing 51,000 people were praying for you. There's nothing like that, because that's what was really happening on X. Because of guys like you, because of my wife, spreading the love and the news to everybody, and everybody's universal response was prayers. And I believe in the power of prayer, always have. So yeah, that's what I would say. I mean, you know, that's a big difference, right? 51,000 people praying for someone.
Heck yeah.
That gets a lot of notice, I think. So
When
yeah.
when did you realize that you had a stroke and you had surgeries? Like when do you like, how long before you realized like, holy shit, this is what happened?
Like 5 minutes after I woke up, because one of the things when you have a stroke, that at least in my case, the nurses all made sure to tell you, not only did they tell you what was going on, but they make you repeat it back as part of your like immediate recovery, is to see how much your brain is retaining like immediately. So that it was like I had to take tests every 5 minutes after I woke up with the nurses. Like, do you know where you're at? What's your name? When's your birthday? You know, do you know what happened? And it was kind of bizarre to me in a sense, because as you mentioned, as we already talked about, I had just moved to Utah like a year ago. Okay, so they're trying to like coach me on some things. Like if I look out my hotel room, I can see the mountains. They're trying to tell me what those mountains are, and I'm like, that doesn't mean anything to me. There's no relative value to knowing what those mountains are, because my mental map was not really full at that point to know what that meant. Like, how does that help me figure out where I'm at? You know? So yeah.
It's 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 fascinating in the way of understanding. I mean, obviously this is a tragedy, but it's fascinating to know that our mind, like we take these things for granted,
Mm. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's,
So for the younger of you guys, even you yourself, you're much younger than me. When something like this happens, you totally lose that sense of invulnerability that I know you have because I had it. I had it my whole life that nothing was going to do anything to me. I'm strong enough to get through anything. So I'll live forever. Like that's kind of like the good thing about male alpha culture, growing up, right? Is that, you kind of get a sense of invulnerability, which helps you protect and take care of your family, right? But
well, here's
something like,
something. Here's something that I'll share with you, and we could talk about this more in our private conversations. But I think the audience will benefit from this too. Is I am younger, folks. Just to put that
yeah,
out there, but that mentality of being Superman, 7 feet tall and bulletproof,
yeah,
that got taken from me on March 18th of 2011. Up until that, I'd already been in 2 gunfights as a cop, and who can count how many from being in Iraq? And you
yeah,
survive all of them, and all that does is just makes you more cocky. Your
yep,
ego gets heavier, and
yep,
then that's the night that I saw my partner die in front of me.
yeah,
And the only difference between me and him, both Marines, both combat vets, both love being cops, both proactive. The only difference between me and him was the shade in our skin color.
mm,
And I remember when I saw that, it took a year, as my own mind had to, kind of remedy what had happened, and those 2 other, fatalities that would happen in that year that were close to me. But the year of 2012 that came afterwards, exactly what you're kind of talking about, James, that's when I realized I'm not bulletproof.
yeah,
As a matter of fact, I can expire at any moment. And that unleashed one of the darkest demons I had ever had a fight in my life. A thing called anxiety, PTSD,
yeah,
something
yeah,
that I had made fun of. James, I was,
yeah.
I would go on calls for
I'm right
service.
there right now, bro.
I know, and that's why I was like, you know what, let's just have this so I can, because one of the most dangerous things in anxiety is the fear of the unknown. That is
Let me
a
see.
that will that's like throwing gasoline on a fire, and fire being anxiety.
Mm,
And so I always tell people that are suffering from anxiety is you're afraid of something you don't know. So identify what that is and start asking questions. And that does start to conquer it. But once you start to realize that, you know, living to 90 and 100 isn't guaranteed, you know,
yeah,
it's the choices you make in life that shape your life after that, whether it be like you said in your example, with smoking or eating habits and things like that. You make these adjustments, and then you actually end up seeing in those adjustments a better quality of life
mm,
and in all aspects of your life. And I'm going to get back to your story here, but man, I was watching a video today before I did my cold plunge, James, or while I
mm,
was doing my cold plunge, and it was Jocko. It was he
mm,
was doing the voiceover on it, and he said something in there that I've been thinking about it all day, man. He goes, when you take responsibility for everything that's happened to you, that's when you experience true freedom. He goes, it's oh my, it's because of my boss, it's because of my girlfriend or my wife or my husband. Oh, it's because of the kids. Oh, it's because this bill came in. He goes, but when you break it down, that maybe that's the thing that triggered it in the end. But what were the choices you made that ultimately led to those chain of events happening? He goes, when you figure out that I'm responsible for everything that's happened to me, he goes, it's going to hurt. He goes, that shit will bring you to your knees. But then you're going to experience the for the first time true freedom, because you're going to realize, well, if I'm responsible for everything that's happened to me, to include the bad things, I'm
mm,
actually in a position now for full control of my own life.
yeah,
and you go on, I'll send you that clip so you can watch it. It was like 17 minutes, 18 minutes, and it's powerful.
Cool.
But
Yeah, cool.
you are in a position now, James, and I've seen it. I've seen that you're a fighter for that. Let me ask you this, and I know this is an emotional conversation, man, but it's going to benefit a lot of people, man. From the audience and the stories that I've had the chance to speak with this audience specifically as well. I mean, you're that close to death, man. And I know you talked about your wife, but you also have a little one, a beautiful little girl.
Yep, 3-year-old.
How has this impacted kind of the way you see her and your relationship with her? And I'm asking for a reason, and
Well,
that's why I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
praying for enough time to help her adjust well in life. That's it. Just, like we just talked about, me being in that PTSD kind of position right now is trying to do everything that is possible for me to be here as long as possible for my wife and my child. So, that's part of that, healing and accepting that all of the reason I'm here is because of all the bad decisions I made and all of the time I spent with false ego and thinking that I would live forever and that, nothing could hurt me, that kind of shit. So it's all my fault that I'm here today in that position because, it's just, that is true. That's why I said that before. You even brought up that story from Jocko, but you're 100% correct that he's 100% right. That it is everything I did that made me get to this position. So you can't blame other people, whatever that situation is. I've been in bad positions before, but not like this, right? But yeah, having a young one and realizing that you didn't have things set up quite correctly, so if I would have died, my family would be in a world of hurt right now. Alpha would probably be doing all he could to take care of them, to be honest, because I just didn't do the right things. So I've still got things I need to do that to set things correctly, so at least they're in the best position they can be in. But yeah, that's the kind of shit that goes through your mind. That's really the PTSD trauma for me in all of this, is that it's not that I almost died, it's that I almost let my family down at an extreme level. And I don't mean like my whole family necessarily, but I definitely mean my wife and my child. Yeah, pretty rough.
It is. I mean, we're what, 2.5 months, approaching 3 months, since this happened. It's what have the doctors told you so far, from your follow-ups, as far as shit, you're doing spaces again. We're picking at your brains again for geopolitics. How impressed have they been with the speed of your recovery?
Yeah, all of them say the same thing. Man, you dodged a major bullet. Like, it's unbelievable. Your recovery is so good. Like, most people, just put it out there for those of you that don't know, people that do recover from strokes, it's generally about 3 months recovery. Okay, just to get to a kind of a normality place. So yeah, they all keep saying the same thing. So yeah, I'm definitely blessed by God to still be here and in this position to be able to use my brain, functional, and almost, again, I've said this so many times earlier in my career, right? And that's why when you brought that up about Rush Limbaugh, it touched me so much, because I've said this before, is that I can hear God's voice. That's the only reason that I've been able to do what I've been able to do so accurately, is because God speaks through me. I just turn it over to him. And so, it's not me, it's him. That's why I've been accurate. This is why I'm good at this, is because I listen and I can hear and then I can translate. So,
well,
it's not me. Go ahead.
Here's something that I'm going to share with you that you're going to get to experience, that very few people get to experience. And because of some of the career choices, I can speak to this on authority because I experienced it. And anybody in the audience that's ever had a near-death experience to the level you have or I have will know exactly what I'm talking about. When you survive something like you did, James, because that's exactly, you literally, death breathed on your neck and God said, not yet. And then you did your work. You did your, because faith needs works, and you've been doing your works. But when you experience that, for people to understand, when you breathe in the next day, the air is different. The sunlight is different. You see the leaves on the tree. You see the ant on the driveway. Life, you see life the way God intended it to be for the first time sometimes. And with that, when you get to hug your wife or your little girl, there's a different connection that's there because you realize the value of it. Not that we didn't know the value of our families before that, but you know the value of your family like you've never experienced. And what you're going to experience, James, for the rest of your life now is life is also going to be so much more beautiful to you than people that have been experienced it. Someone that's came within a minute of dying compared to someone that's never even come within 20 years of it, just don't see life the same. I'm curious if you've experienced any of that yet.
Oh yeah. Absolute appreciation for every minute. I'm still drawing breath. Yeah, you're totally right with what you just said about everything's just that little bit different. That just, that little more clarity of purpose, of mission, of, what your connections are, like how close this dream could just end, and it's just, yeah, you got to learn to appreciate every second of every day that you get with your family. You cannot waste a second in any of, this is why I'm sorry to make this maybe a little too much biblical for everybody, maybe,
No,
but
you're
it's
good.
one of the things that's really important is forgiveness, and that means letting shit go, no grudges. You don't have time in your life for ticky tack bullshit with anybody, even idiots on the internet. Like, don't hold anything like to account that much to where it poisons your heart for a second, because I'm telling you, that's wasted time and energy that you could be having good times and fun and love with your family. Even if that time you spend is only just watching TV with your family, that's important time. You can't get back if you're wasting your energy on being angry, holding a grudge against somebody that ultimately doesn't fucking matter. In fact, I'll tell you a little bit personal, is that from the past, right? Conversations that we've had, there's plenty of people on the internet that tried to stop my career at doing this, right? They tried to take advantage of me and stuff me in a hole, and bury me, okay? So one of those people recently, I actually reshared their content because their content was important, what they were talking about. And so that goes to, don't hold any grudges against these people. You got to learn to forgive it. Even though they did you wrong, even though these people did me horribly, God's mission to you is still put your ego aside, forgive people. If you want the grace from God, you got to show grace. That is a very Christian tenet right there for people to remember. Okay.
It's not as easy as a lot of people would think too.
No.
Because a lot of times we say, I've forgiven that person, but have you?
Yeah. Have you?
Yeah. And when you've, this is so, when I realized that I actually forgave for the first time, had you asked me the day before, have you ever forgiven someone? I would have said, yeah, hundreds of times.
Mm.
And I remember the specific moment because I was in my truck and I just dropped off my 2 girls at high school. And I remember I'm driving back and I'm holding on the steering wheel and I started praying for this person, bro. And let me tell you, if I was to say who, some people would be like, bro, I thought you would have hit him with your truck. Like, what do you mean you were praying for this person? And I can't really say what made that moment happen. I don't know. And I don't remember, or maybe my brain doesn't want to remember. I can't share that part. It's just, I don't have recollection of it, but I have recollection.
I can tell you, I almost guarantee that's God talking to you.
It had to be, because I remember I just started praying for that person. and it was sincere. Like, it was meant. Like, I wasn't going through the motions. Like, I meant it.
Right.
And I remember tears started coming down out of my eyes, and I'm just like, what the heck is going on here as I'm driving home? But you know what? Immediately following that, James, I felt better. Like, I felt like what the hell was I was carrying something I didn't even know I was carrying. And then and then that's when I realized, like, forgiveness is actually healthy for you.
Yep. Forgiveness is not about the person that wrongs you. Forgiveness is all about you.
Yeah, it was
100%.
yeah, it was, man, I remember that, you know.
Remember this, for those of you in the audience, I know you'll catch this. Erica Kirk, one of the first things she said publicly that everybody heard? She forgave the asshole that killed her husband. Okay? Just remember that. If she can forgive that guy, you can forgive anybody that's ever wronged you in your life. Okay? Just remember that.
100%. As we come to an ending here, there's a thing I do at the end of the show. It's just rapid fire 10 questions.
Sure.
No thought process into these, you know, just what goes, you know, first thing that comes off your mind. And then at the end of that, I want to make sure we let everybody know where to find you in the different places you're at. It's been scrolling across the screen. Again, it's in the description. We'll go. But let me get first into these 10 questions.
Sure.
What's the one political prediction you're most proud of ever getting right?
Donald Trump's need to win the election in 2016. Like, that's the main thing that launched my podcast, by the way, was to get Donald Trump elected. I was trying to decide, how could I make the biggest impact possible for a single individual in this country? Because I recognized right away how important he was going to be to getting through the things that myself and thousands of people in this country had been talking about for decades at that point. Right. So 2015 was that penultimate year of let's go, let's get it done. So yeah,
I was still in the Matrix, thinking everything was hunky dory as a cop. I tell you what, James, man, I look back, you know, prior to my red pill moment, and I was just like, man, for as smart as you were, you didn't have a clue what was really going on in the world, which has helped me actually keep my empathy to people that haven't woken up yet. Because a lot of times we want to write them off, you know, screw them if they're not awake. But I was just like, look, I wasn't a dumb guy, you know, I was, you know, had a good head on my shoulders and clueless. So next one, if you could force every American to understand one thing about elections, what would it be?
That it requires everybody's participation. It's not something you can sit on. Like, it's if you don't participate, you're part of the problem. And I don't mean just voting, but voting obviously is crucial. But I mean participating in some fashion, helping to spread whoever your candidate is. And local is the most important of all of the levels. Everybody keeps pushing it to the presidency, and that's why you see so many people don't vote in the off-cycle elections. And it's because people are just passive and they're apathetic, and too many people in this country are pessimistic. You've got to be optimistic. And let me just share one more biblical thing to show you how important optimism is. The Jews wandered around in the desert for 40 years, and they still maintained their optimism, and they came out of it in a better place than they were. So if they can do that, whatever you're facing, you can find some optimism. Whatever you think is, you know, why you're pessimistic, right? Why you don't believe things are going to work out. That's crap. Put your faith in God, and you'll get through it.
And I can attest to that. I agree with you 100% on that, because when I had to make one of the hardest decisions in my life, there was 3 people that I turned to for advice. James was one of those 3 people. I just didn't trust anybody else for advice. So there was 3 people I turned to. And the first two told me about a decision that I was like, no, that can't be right. And remember, these are people that I trust with my life. So I said, James was the third one. The first two were family members. And so then I said, I got to turn to James. And James, you remember this. I said, James, they offered me the golden goose egg of plea deals.
Mm-hmm.
The golden goose egg. And for those that don't know my story, at this time, I was already about 3 years into the fight. A little over 3 years into it. I was exhausted. I nothing was, you're like, should I pay the truck or should I pay the light? Which one leaves more groceries? You're not living paycheck to paycheck. You're living shut off notice to repo notice. Like
Right.
That's where you're living.
Yep.
And then the government says, hey, plead guilty, and all this goes away, plus all this extra stuff. And I told James about it. And again, James, one of the smartest people that I know and I trust. And James said, listen, you got to take that deal, man. And I remember 3 people that I respect, that I love, and that I trust told me the same thing. And I remember something in my heart said, no, you got to say no. And this, when James says, sometimes you just got to trust God, it came down to, this was going to be just me and God. It was going to be me and God. And I said no, and you guys know the story. No, and I'll have to recap it. It was right. And so I 100% sign off on that, James. 100%. Sometimes trusting God means you're going to go against everybody, even the ones you love.
Yep.
And you want to talk about feeling alone? You feel very alone until you realize what the presence of God feels like. So, next question. What's the most underrated state in America when it comes to political influence? I'm very curious to this one.
When it comes to political influence, is that what the end of the question?
Yeah. What's the most underrated state in our country when it comes to political influence?
Massachusetts.
No shit.
Yeah. They have had an outsized presence and influence in the whole country's politics for a very long time, even before John F. Kennedy. So people don't recognize or realize how much what happens in Massachusetts and the Boston area influences what has happened in our country, right down to and including some of the decisions you're seeing happen from some of these judges today, because those judges were blue slipped in through Massachusetts, which means that those Democrat whack job ideas were how the judge got their seat. And that affects national things, right? We all know that now. We're watching these federal district judges screw things up every day. So, yeah, no, Massachusetts for sure has had one of the most outsized. And by the way, a lot of people will forget this, but Romney, yeah, there's a reason why he was in Massachusetts and in Utah. Okay, there's a historical connection there for him and his family. A lot of people wouldn't know it, right? Like so here's something for everybody to kind of realize. The Mormons started over there, and they came out and they founded Utah. Romney's family was one of the founding families of Utah. That's the multi-state connection for him. Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah. The Romney family was one of the founding families of the state of Utah. They were out with the original Smith founding of the state.
And I am going to speed us up here, James.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you guys can hear this because of bro, it feels like someone just turned on the water faucet over the house. It is pouring.
Oh, wow.
It was so loud I could hear it through the cans. I was like, at first I thought it was one of the fans to the lights I have for the studio. And I'm like, holy smoke. So we're gonna rush through this because I don't know how long power is gonna be on, because that sounds very concerning. I gotta check on family too. So we'll skip to the last 2 questions here.
Sure.
If you could debate one public figure, dead or alive, who are you choosing, and what's the first question you're asking them?
Oh, that's a tough Uh, I'm just going to throw this. This is kind of the throwaway. I think a lot of members of the audience would have the same kind of answer. Barack Obama, first question, why did you want to destroy this country? Because it's clear by all the things that he did, that was his goal, right? Like it's just like what's happening now. Why are leftists killing people on the right? Because the politicians are inciting it, right? They're the ones that are putting the rhetoric into the zeitgeist. They're the ones that are not trying to back anybody down. This goes all the way back to Obama. And I mean, look, I grew up, like I said, through the 70s and 80s, had to fight everybody. There was systemic racism in this country was dead until Obama actually won the election, and all of a sudden he resuscitated it. That's the first downfall that started happening to this country. Was he brought back up reasons to hate each other, right? And then that's where we're at today. Just reasons to hate each other.
He did it he did it in so many aspects of society. The one that I felt, because I had to live through it, was the gap he created between law enforcement and the community.
Yeah.
I mean, he did it in so many ones, but that was the one that I lived that part. Like, I had personal experience to, like, he made people hate cops.
Yep.
And he brought a lot of good cops to the point of, well, fuck it. Why am I even doing this? They don't even care about us anymore. And when you have two communities that are supposed to be in collaboration with each other and they feel that way, that's not a good thing. So last question. If your audience had to describe you using only a food, what do you think they would pick? And why is it probably something spicy?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I probably, I think that you're spot on there, is that it's going to be like some spicy tacos, right? I mean, because that's all we want to do, right? Is have fun. That's like my whole audience right there. Let's have fun. Let's talk about what's really going on, but let's stay optimistic, and let's insert some fun anywhere we can, because if you take life too seriously, again, you're wasting time that you could be enjoying life with your anger and being upset. So, yeah, I guess that they would. I would guess that they would think maybe some more like Speedy Gonzalez type taco type of situation, right? Because that's just me, right? I'm all over the place. Things are moving rapid, and we're gonna have a good time. So.
If it was me, I would have said some fried rice, because James is my Asian persuasion. You know what? And let's get one more in here. It kind of slowed down. Maybe it was just a heavy cloud that came over. That was kind of freaky, bro. Especially because, for those that don't know, I rent an Adobe style house, so it's a flat roof. So heavy rains, become very concerning.
For those of you that don't or didn't follow Alpha for as long as I've been around, go back and look at his old timeline. Maybe do some search. There's pictures of Alpha, like, basically in his underwear on his roof, trying to stop it from flooding. Okay, like I just want to put that out there. Like,
that's where that fear comes from, that I'm going through right now. That's what's going through my mind. Like, man, like, is this going to be one of those? Was that what did they call that one? Was that the Hillary one? Was it Hillary?
I don't remember, but it was one of those. Yeah, West Coast. Bad one. Yeah, bad storm that came in from the West Coast and went across the whole country. Yeah.
Just to let people know, probably about 3/4 of a mile from here, half a mile, the homes that were there, 2-story homes. The mud, because it literally brought in the mud from, because Southern California, we're not built for floods, people. Literally, they had mud to the second floor of their homes. Gas stations, you know how tall the roof on a gas station is? You could only see the top of that. Like, it was very, very dangerous. So the last question, James, just to kind of give people a taste of kind of, some of the content you have and what we all like to, definitely exploit you for. And then we'll let everybody know where to find you. What's one thing right now, especially on social media, that people are falling for that's not going to turn out the way they think?
Epstein, 100%. Most of, even people on our side that you think are leading you in the right direction, have been basically bamboozled themselves, and even unintentionally are feeding you horse shit, okay? A lot of the narrative to begin with on this subject started with a bunch of lawyers trying to cash in out of Southern Florida, just to put that plainly, okay? This kind of idea that a lot of people think, like that there's some massive pedophile network that was happening, that never happened. I'm just telling you this right now, that never happened. That was a figment of people's imagination in order to generate cash, okay? Like, none of that shit happened, okay? Like, I mean, you'd have to make some serious leaps of imagination to get there, okay? Even if you take the Virginia Guffey story at face value, okay, and you say, okay, well, she was under the age of consent, even if that's what you think about that, that's still not pedophilia, okay? So we have very specific language in this country for a reason, okay? Yeah, so just all that whole story, that whole scenario is horseshit, okay? I'm just telling you this right now. It's not going to turn out the way everybody thinks it is. In fact, you're seeing some of that right now, right? You still have idiots on the internet, whether they're in government or not, saying release the Epstein files. It's like they're ignoring that we just released 50,000 documents. It's like everybody wants to ignore that we've released the audio transcription between Todd Blanche and Ghislaine Maxwell that just happened, right? It's like everybody just wants to ignore what's happening. They want to twist this into whatever, including people on our side, okay, that want it to be that there's all these Democrats that are just evil and we need to remove them from the planet, okay? So everybody has a vested interest in this story right now. That is not true, okay? And it's you're being bamboozled. Your own brain is telling you lies, okay? And it's all based on narrative, okay? I'm telling you, this whole idea of this story never happened, okay? Like, I'm sorry, I can't put it any clearer, but when it all plays out at the end, you'll see that God wins in the end and that we're going to be on that winning side because we chose to have a clear mind about this.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that the Epstein story was sold as the way it was in order to create so much fabrication that when the real Epstein story, which is one of blackmail, would come forward, people just wouldn't believe it because they're always going to believe it was something else?
Yeah. They plugged on your emotions to the point where you can't even see clearly anymore. This is the nature of things, right? It's like there's people probably in this very audience that will fight with me and tell me we never went to the moon, okay? I'm telling you that right now. I'm smart enough to know there's somebody in this audience right now that would fight with me about that, okay? And that's because they believe the thing that they were sold so completely that they can't see any alternate view. They can't look around the corner and say, okay, change my mind. They're not going to come at it or approach the issue honestly, right? Because your heart has been poisoned. That's the facts, okay? And again, I hate to do this because I'm not a preacher, but this episode has been very godly. This is the same thing here. You got to pray. You got to ask God, what's the truth? Because Satan will tell you lies all day long. And if you're trying, and this is a standard biblical thing, just for people to understand, right? Is that God tells you over and over, do not rely upon your own understanding. Okay? Don't rely on the things that you're being told, because Satan lies right to your face all day long. Okay? Including how smart you are. He loves to blast your ego up. Okay? Because he can keep poisoning you forever and keep you away from a relationship with God that's correct. Okay? So, again, I'm not a preacher. So if I got any parts of that wrong and you are a preacher, feel free to reach out to me and tell me. Okay? Because I'm just telling you, that's my interpretations. That's what I'm being told.
Yeah, I'm there with you, and I'll actually address that in my final thoughts. But as we close this down, James, God bless you, brother. You and your family, you guys have been in my prayers. You will continue to be in my prayers. You can go tonight and sleeping every night, knowing that no matter what happens, I will never let your family go hungry or homeless. That will never happen so long as I am breathing. And I know the same for my family exists with you. Um, so
Absolutely.
where can people find you? Anything you got coming up that you want to share so that the audience is aware of it? And I'll give it to you, brother.
Yeah. So the best place to find me is over on x.com at real person, PLTCS. That's politics with no vowels. It's been floating across the bottom there, I believe. So yeah, just find me over there on X. That's the best place to contact me for any kind of, daily communication. All my shows do go onto Rumble, and I'd really appreciate all the help we could get to build my Rumble channel. I've been working on it. I'm nowhere near as proficient or as good as Alpha is here. So please help me out over on Rumble. Same name, Real Person PLTCS. Link to it is on my bio on X. Make things easier. And I know Alpha's been pimping all night. Check the description below if you're on Rumble. So he should have a link to it to make life easy for you. So you don't even have to type. All you got to do is click, point and click. But yeah. So as far as what do I have coming up, what's big? Not a lot is big, but I will say that I do shows 5 days a week. I essentially do this for a living now, full time. So I even communicate with my Monday show, which is called Off the Cliff, is with a friend of ours called Cliff Moskowitz. He's a leftist. So we're getting communication with the enemy. And I think that that's very important. Look, that's exactly what, and I've been doing this for a long time, well before Charlie Kirk was killed. But remember, that was Charlie Kirk's thing, right? Was we need to have open dialogue, because if we don't, we're going to end up exactly where we ended up, which is leftists killing people on the right for nothing but opinion. Okay? That's insane. That's insane. Nobody in this audience grew up that way. None of you. Even if you got in a fight when you were in kindergarten, whatever, school, your parents did not teach you to continue to go beat the shit out of that kid. Your parents taught you that, look, we don't solve anything with our fists. We solve them with our words, right? Relax. Take a chill pill. So, yeah, this is why those shows I think are important, is so that maybe there's some people that are right on that edge that we can get to them. Like you said, right? You got to pray for those people that actually come to that point of understanding, because, like you said, even your own red pill moment took a while, and you were like, man, I'm smart. I can't believe it took me this long. So we got to pray now for those that haven't woke up yet to how they're being manipulated constantly by the media, by politicians, all self-serving people, even companies. The entire idea behind advertising itself is to manipulate you. Okay? So you're being manipulated constantly every day. Okay? Now, whether those manipulations are for good or evil is up to you and God to figure out. Because sometimes even God has had to put things in your way in order to wake you up to what his choices were for you, right? To lead you in the right direction. He had to literally block your way in order to put you on the path he wanted you on, to give you something better than what you thought you wanted. Okay? So just keep that in mind. But you're being manipulated constantly, and you think a lot of that manipulation is normal. You've accepted it, right? You've accepted that MSNBC is going to lie to you. You've accepted that CNN is going to lie to you. And then you just hope that you can see the lie for what that lie is. But yeah.
100%. Folks, I will say this much. Go to the links down in the description. You guys know I have never pointed you in the direction of the wrong direction when it comes to a person to follow. As a matter of fact, you guys usually message me and you're like, man, thank you for pointing me in the direction of that person, whether it was Ghost in the Middle East or whoever it was. I'm telling you, if you want to see the geopolitical picture for what it really is, you gotta follow James R. Go. The X link is downstairs. The Rumble link is downstairs. Make sure you go and get it. James, stick around real quick. I'm gonna do my final thoughts, but I want to share some stuff with you. So do me a favor. Don't disappear out of the studio real quick, folks. I'm asking you, as an audience that has shown me loyalty, that has shown me compassion, that has poured their own finances into my missions, my fight, my survival, and the food that I have fed my family with. James is my brother. He is a friend. And I'm asking you, go follow this person and go support the content he does. That would mean the world to me. The other thing that I will say is I love when God enters the conversation, because we've gone to the point where sometimes we feel like we got to apologize to talking about God. And sometimes we feel uncomfortable about talking about God. And those are emotions of us losing the battle in Christianity or whatever religion you want to follow. So we need to make talking about God normal again. And with that, I'll ask you guys to pray for my friend, pray for his strength, his continued strength, that of his family. This is something that's just not hard for him, but it's hard for his family, the one that lives under the roof with him, and the family that's extended outside of his home. So please keep them in prayers. And remember this when you pray. When you ask God for patience, he doesn't give you patience. He gives you a moment where you're going to learn to be patient. When you ask God for courage, he's not going to wave a wand and make you courageous. He's going to put events in your life where you can be courageous. When you pray for these things for God and you want them, he's going to help you grow through those things, to have those things. So when you pray, be prepared. People say, I'm praying. Why is life getting harder? Because God's answering your prayers. That's why. And sometimes you will feel so alone until you remember that famous poem, The Footprints in the Sand. You know, there's two footprints. You know, the person, I don't remember by heart, but I remembered enough to share it. You know, this guy's seeing that there's two footprints because God's walking with him in life. And then every time something hard happens in life, he only sees one set of footprints. And so in the end, he says, God, why at the hardest times in my life? Why was that when you left me? There was only one set of footprints. And God looks at him and says, there's only one set of footprints because that's when I carried you. Powerful statement, folks. Powerful statement. You guys follow my friend, links down in the description. God bless, Semper Fi. Devolution Power Hour coming up next. Continue to support Badlands. If you're watching on the Alpha Warrior Show, make sure you hit that like, share, and subscribe. The content is free. I'll catch you guys on the next one. God bless and Semper Fi.